Welcome to Woman Talk, where we keep it real, real. My name is Tara. Please join me and my girls, Dee Dee and Promessa, as we have difficult and informative conversations. Our goal is to uplift and encourage you. Please go with us on this journey.
Welcome to Woman Talk, where we keep it real, real. I'm with my girls today, Tara and Promessa. And then, of course, welcome our special guests, Krista and Monika, today as we discuss being broken to healed, as these ladies tell their story about their lives before being incarcerated, after they were released, and the healing process for them. So just sit back and enjoy and grab your tissue. And again, welcome
to crying today. We ain't doing that.
Tara put her on for a reason.
He's crying.
So again, I want to thank you, ladies, just for being here with us. Yes. And I guess it would be good for us to start just with each of you telling just a little bit about your story, and then we can get into questions and different things like that. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. So my story is, I'm gonna call it bomb. You know why? Because I came out and victorious. And it's only because of God I can tell you that I made it through. You can't make it through no storms without God. And I mean, you might make it halfway through, but you'll be raggedy. But I'm talking about coming out whole and healed. I was incarcerated for 7 years. I went to prison. My daughter was 7 years old when I got sentenced. I explained to her that I was going away and that I was going to prison. There was people telling me to say, just tell her you're going to college. No, because she got to be able to trust me. She got to know when her mama say something, it's real. You know, I didn't want to go away based on a lie and then have to come home and try to rebuild that relationship. And, you know, at some point you're going to find that out. And being very young at the time. So I'm glad I decided against what was being advised to me. I did explain to a 7-year-old that I was going to prison. One of the big things is right before I got sentenced, I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I was afraid. I knew I had to turn myself in. Well, that was the plan. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll just run and hide. And see, I'm telling you, when the Bible says that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. And that is so true, because let me tell you something, had I not been pregnant when I needed to turn myself in, I would have ran because I was crazy, and I might not even be alive right now. Wow. I turned myself in because I didn't know what I was going to do with my baby after when I had him. If I was on the run, then what am I going to do with him? I could never come back to my family. When I tell you that was going to prison is one thing. Having a baby while you're in there is a whole nother level. I felt really, really low. There was so much shame and guilt. And that was just the lowest that I've ever felt in my entire life. So, I mean, I don't know how much y'all want to go. The story is real long, but let me tell you something. I came out, my son is healthy. My children are healthy. We have a great relationship. God is a restorer. And that's kind of just sums it up. And we can just go from there. But just for somebody that feels like they're in a broken state, or you feel shackled and chained up. I was chained to the bed when I gave birth to my son.
That's what I was just going to ask, if you could share a little bit more detail of how you delivered your baby, what was going on. Can you share a little bit more about that, about being shackled to the bed?
So just the time for the delivery, they take you to a hospital. You don't deliver, like the movies and stuff that they show will have people thinking really crazy stuff. I mean, it was a really bad, dark place, but they took me out to a hospital, but I was shackled to the bed. Now, anybody that's giving birth to a baby, you really ain't gonna take off going nowhere when you in labor. You can't run, and I don't know, but security purposes, I was shackled to the bed. And so just picture that, giving birth to your baby, shackled to the bed. And, I delivered him. Thank God he was healthy. Now there's guards around me with guns and everything. I go to the room and I'm able to spend a night with him. And then they came in the room the next day and said, okay, you got to give him to the nurses because you have to go back. I broke down. I have my son in my hand and I got to give him to some stranger. Basically, it wasn't my family, but my mother did come to get my son. My mother and his father, they flew there. They were able to take him. But just having to give him up and go back into the prison, I'm shackled to the bed, give him up, shackled, go back. I could still smell him. You could smell your baby. I was producing milk. My breast was producing milk. My body is trying to do everything it's supposed to do for this baby, but the baby, my seed, has been taken from me. So now I'm back in my cell and I cried every single day. I just laid there and I cried, and I'm fighting tears right now. And this was over 20 years ago. It was so dark. I mean, I could just, if you ever know what a scent is like, scents linger. And I could just smell, even when I showered, I would go back to my room and I would smell my baby. I was so depressed. I was just down. I had faith and hope because I knew where he was at. He was at home with my mother and his father. But just having that taken from me at that moment, you already feel low. Being in prison with or without a baby, you're going to feel low. It just intensified it. It magnified it so much. And then I didn't get that bonding time. It was maybe 24 hours. So I didn't get that bonding time, and it was devastating. It was devastating. I'm gonna tell you, I cried many tears, many, many, many tears, and just praying that I didn't lose my mind.
Monica, or y'all said her name is Monika. She's a good friend of mine. I call her Monica or I call her Moni. So in this setting, it's going to probably go back and forth between a lot of them. So just know that. So Moni, what would you tell us?
So, wow. Just to start, I'm just gonna say, when I went in, I did 3.5 years, and then I did another, I want to say 6 months in a halfway house. I had a lot of traumatizing things happen in the beginning of that, but just like the other lady, when I went in, first of all, I'm gonna just say this. I was tricked into, I don't want to say tricked because I did agree to go, but the person was already setting me up because they had got caught up into some, they had got caught by the feds. And so they were already caught up, and they were literally looking for people to tell on. So they picked victims to send them out and to go do some things and then come back so that they could tell. So that's the first thing. And then number two, just like her, I was pregnant as well. I was pregnant with my last child. I found out at the last minute, but I was already willing in my mind to just go ahead and turn myself in. That wasn't, I want to say it was a very low time. And just like her, it was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of insecurities, a lot of hurt and pain that came along with that. Because I was in a desperate situation. So I had to figure out where my kids was gonna go. And I didn't really have a lot of support. So like normally you would have a lot of family support, but I really didn't. And so the people that I thought I could depend on, I couldn't. But my son's, his great grandmother, she actually originally was going to take all the kids, but of course she was too old to be trying to take care of all the kids. So she took my son, and my mom at the time, she took my daughter. And that came with another whole set of problems because my mom was, she was an alcoholic, you know, but out of desperation, I didn't know what to do. You know, I wanted my daughter to stay with my grandmom and my aunt, but I didn't have that option. So I had to place her in a place that probably wasn't the safest, but was the safest, outside her going to have to go be taken from me.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure that out like really fast. I was pregnant and I thought about, I'm just going to be honest, I thought about if I was going to abort her or not, because I'm like, I'm going to be in a prison. Should I do this or should I not? I really don't believe in that. And so I decided to keep her. And just like her, I was chained to the bed, going through all those pains and all of that. But as I gave birth to my youngest, I was down in Florida, Miami, Florida. Which is Dade County. And I remember being shackled, and when I had her, they took her from me and I couldn't see her. So the nurse said, "Are you gonna breastfeed or are you just gonna, give her regular milk?" And I told her I was gonna breastfeed because had I not said that, I would have never been able to see my daughter at all. Like they were keeping her from me. Not only that, she was automatically going to go into the system, and they told me that I needed to find somebody to come get her. Well, this is a miracle story because I had once I got out, I had toxemia, so I was very sick. The doctors was like really upset with whoever was taking care of me. So as a matter of fact, she was able to leave before I was. I had to stay in the hospital for about a couple of weeks because of the toxemia was so bad. But I was able to, as long as I was there, because I was breastfeeding her, they let me keep her in the room with me. So that was my saving grace to see her for the week and a half that I had her. And then they immediately took her and put her in a home. So now I'm all messed up, anxious, just all of these things going through my head. Like, what am I going to do? So my mom at the time was going to come pick up my daughter, but she called me. Well, I called her and she was like, "Well, I can't come get her. It's not going to be able to happen." There was a lot of factors that I didn't know at the time. My mom was sick with cancer and she was dying, and I didn't know that. So then I tried to call one of my cousins and she was like, "Oh, I'll come get her." And when I called her and said, "Well, you're going to have to come get her," she was like, "Well, I can't come get her. I don't want to take care of no more kids." And so that was out the window. So I'm scrambling because I'm desperate now, because I'm like, what in the world am I going to do? I don't know. Like, somebody has to come get her. So I finally, I called my son's grandma, which is his great grandma. She was like, "Well, I don't fly and I can't come get her. I can't do that." She was like, "But if you can get her here, I'll take care of her." So she was my saving grace. My son's father's family was there, So what wind up happening is my son's mother, his mom, she was like, "Well, I'll get her." She said, "But you're going to have to provide the flight. And so if you can give me the flight, you can give me the money to get the flight, I'll go get her and I'll take care of her." I'm in prison, so I don't have any money. But here's the ghetto part. I had somebody on the outside that I was dealing with. He was an older man. He was my sugar daddy. Just being real cold about it. And I told him I need him to send me the money or send her the money so she can come get my daughter. And he did. He gave her the money. He sent her whatever she needed. And I told her whatever she needed, just give it to her. And he did. So she came and got her that Monday. I was able to have a visit, which was my first visit, and it almost didn't happen because of technicalities and time. And so I wind up being able to see her before she left. It's just the most beautiful baby ever. I'm just, And so she wind up taking her. And then I found out from my caseworker that had nobody come to pick her up that Monday, she would have been lost to the foster care system forever. Like I wouldn't have been able to get her. Like there would have been no way that I could have got her because I would have lost all my rights because I was in prison.
In Lansing, Michigan, Saturday, which is October 30th. This is going to be an event for women only, guys. Sorry.
And so I know that was a miracle from God, and nobody can tell me that that was not a miracle, because what I do know is a miracle is defined by time. That's what I do know. I know I'm talking biblical, but I do know miracles, it takes the time out of time, and that's when you have a miracle. So when I found all this out, then I wind up, I think a year later, I came home. And so my kids were scattered. My objective was to get all my kids back together and bring them back with me. My son, he wind up staying with his grandma, his great grandma. He still stay with her to this day. But we still have a great relationship. But there was a lot of healing that had to happen in the midst of all of that. My son was angry. My daughter was angry. And my little daughter, she didn't know anything. She was 2 years old. But when she seen me, what I do know is she knew who I was. I don't know how she knew that, but I still believe that was God too. Because when she seen me, she just kept staring at me like, I know her. Like, who is that? Like, and she kept wanting to come to me because I hadn't had a relationship with her. She was 2 years old when I got out of prison. And so I was in for my whole, pregnancy. And then on top of that, her 2 years, she was almost 3. And so she was like really leery of me. And so anyways, I wind up getting her back and gathering my children, and then going through the aftermath of that, where they were angry and they were blaming and this and that and the other. And so I had to go through the healing process with each one of my kids. And today we have really great relationships. And I'm just thankful to God for that, because I'm gonna just say this. One thing that I did tell my kids is like, they were so angry. I let them blame me, but then when we had the conversation, I wouldn't allow them to continue that in that game. Like, you did this, no, we're not doing that anymore. I went through that. I had to stay in prison. You went through it vicariously, but I served that time. Y'all didn't serve that time. I did this for our family. I did what I did because I needed to make sure my family would stay afloat. I didn't have any support. And all I knew is that whatever it took to take care of my family, that's what I was going to do. And it just so happened to be that at the time, this was the way. In my mind, I didn't have another option. Nobody was giving me money. Nobody was feeding my kids. Nobody was having to take my kids back and forth, me getting on the bus, getting off the bus, me walking miles and miles and all of this. And I just thought that this would be where I could have a break to get myself back on my feet and actually get myself on my feet so that I could have a good start with my kids. But it just didn't work out like that. And I'm okay with that. But I'm just thankful to God that today that I have a new story to tell out of all of that happened. And that's just this little portion that I'm telling you, this is just a little bit of that, because after I got out of prison, my mom passed away. They gave me 2 options. I was in, when I was in a halfway house, the lady who ran the halfway house, she said, you have 2 choices. She said, you can see your mom when she's alive, or you can see her when she's dead. Which one do you choose? Wow. And that's a no-brainer. I want to see my mom while she's alive. When she's dead, she's not going to know I'm even there. So I want to see her. And so they gave me a furlough, and I was able to go down there and see her and visit her. And my mom was just like, she was horrible. I mean, she was really, really bad, like bones and skin and bones. So I stayed down there with her. I came back, and she was holding on. I just, I spent the time with her. I came back, and it was about a week before I was going to get out, she passed. And I was so for sure that they would let me go. I only had a week to go. I hadn't been in any trouble. I had been doing everything I was supposed to do. and they denied my furlough. And I was devastated. And so with that came another set of issues, because now the lady running the halfway house was antagonizing me and picking with me and telling me she'll send me back to prison because I was upset. And I said, listen, and I was just frank with her. I said, I don't like you. I don't like you. I told her, I do not like you. I said, but that does not give you the right to say you're going to send me back to prison, because I didn't like her. She was going to send me back to prison. I haven't done anything to you. I don't have to like you. All I have to do is respect this place and do what I'm supposed to do. I don't have to like you. And so it's so sad, because I had to make the stark raving difference of being respected and not liked. Like, I don't have to like you to be here. And I didn't like her, because she could have let me go see my mom, and she didn't. She did it spitefully. She was evil. She just, didn't. So anyways, I went through that. So not only getting out of prison and going through that, it was just a big array of mess. So I couldn't see my mom, and I couldn't go down there to join my brothers when she passed away.
Saturday, October 30th, from 11 to 3 o'clock, we're going to have this women's event in the Elmwood room at the library.
So then I have a question, even because that brings up something too, just the level of abuse that you endure being incarcerated. And I can't compare it to what maybe someone would go to that's a male, but in my opinion, it just would seem like being a female incarcerated in the prison system. And it sounds like both of you were probably in the federal penitentiary system. If I'm incorrect, Crystal, let me know. But
No,
just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, they were pretty harsh. I had a lieutenant come to me, and I went in the office for something, and I was asking her, I think it was about lunch, or it was something really minor. And her and I had a disagreement. She was saying something about my room, and I told her no. And she got upset. She told me to watch what I'm saying. And I said, I didn't say anything wrong. I just said no. It was something she wanted out of my room, or I don't know. I can't quite remember that. But she said, do you know what my job is? I said, I sure do know what your job is. And she said, okay, Miss Smarty Pants, well, what is it? I said, to keep me here as long as you can. She said, you're absolutely correct. I said, and that's what you're not going to do, because I'm leaving. That's what I'm going to do. And she was like furious, because I'm just a matter of fact person. Like, that's just me in a nutshell. I just told her, like, you're not keeping me here. She said, yeah, we'll see. I said, no, we ain't gonna see nothing, because we're going home. I got kids out there. I'm not trying to stay up in here. And so, they would harass me. They would come in my room, and they would raid my room and see if I had anything illegitimate in my room that we weren't supposed to have. And I never would have anything. And she was like, yeah, we're going to get you. I said, well, whatever. I mean, they were just barking up the wrong tree, because I wasn't doing none of that. I was trying to come home. And so what did get me is there was a young lady there, and she tried to fight me. And at first I was actually letting her hit me, because I didn't want to, mess up my time. And she tried to push me down some stairs. And I remember I got so angry. I walked away, and my crazy tail walked back up the stairs, went back up the stairs where she was at, grabbed her by her head and started banging her head in the wall until somebody got me off of her. And then I told her, don't you ever put your hands on me again. I don't know what made me do it. But at that point, it made me, I went all the way up to maximum security because of that, because I heard her. But people were just picking, and I was trying to be quiet because I wanted to go home. But I think those are some of the tactics that the people do, especially when they have a longer time. They want you to get in trouble, because they don't want to, see anybody going home, because they're not going home, or they got such a long time that they would rather for you to stay in there than to get out. So I went through that challenge. There is abuse from the inmates, abuse from the officers there. I mean, you name it. You always have to watch your back. You always have to know who you're dealing with. And even the people that you deal with, they may turn on you just like this. I mean, it could be one conversation from somebody in the facility and they turn on you just like that. So you always have to be on your toes, watching your back. And yeah, I had a couple of friends there, but it was pretty rough. It was kind of rough. It was kind of rough. It's a lot of abuse that goes on there. Just like the streets, pretty much. But a little rougher because you're in a closed facility now, so it's not like you can get away from it because you're there. And so that's one of the things that I went through.
And I know something, and Krista, I want you to speak a little bit to that, but then I want you all to talk about what you were able to gain once you're released, because I think both of you guys have been able to do great things after you got out of prison. And I don't want to say your stories are unique, but they probably are, because I don't hear the level of resiliency or bounce back in other people who I know have been incarcerated. So Krista, first, if you could speak to the abuse, and then I want you both to take some time and talk about some of the things you've accomplished after you were released.
There's definitely some abuse, and I agree with her. Just like being in the streets, you have to watch your back all the time. I too got into a fight. I had no choice. Monika, you said you don't know why you went back. You went back because you had to. Otherwise, they would have been on you all day, every day.
Yeah.
I got into a fight. Actually, a young lady, I was walking down the stairs. I don't call her a young lady, but this chick hit me in my head. And honestly, I think just like if you think of a bully on the playground or whatever, they checking you out, they trying you, they want to see how you gonna respond. And if you allow it, then it'll continue. And so I too, I defended myself very well. And then I spent 90 days in the hole. I don't know if you went to the hole, Monika. I'm sure you did if you were in federal. Yeah, you said you were bumped
6
up
months.
to max.
6
So,
months.
and the funny thing is, she started the altercation. She actually hit me in my head with something. I think it was a lock, but I don't know. Anyway, I in turn did the same thing. I walked away, went and got my lock off of my locker. So that's one of the weapons that they use in prison is a lock. You put it in the sock, you wrap it up, and it becomes a weapon. And this individual put it separate. It was supposed to be just 30 days in the what they call the hole, but it's solitary confinement. It's so funny because like when I talk to my mom, they picture when I say in the hole, like they didn't dig a hole, I wasn't in the ground. You're in a cell by yourself. It's kind of, solitary confinement where there's no really communication with the regular population. You're supposed to be there for 30 days. I ended up being there 90 days because the girl I got into the fight with filed a separate said she was afraid of me. And so now they were trying to figure out if they were going to send me to a different institution, which made me stay in that solitary confinement for 90 days. So when you're in that cell, it's a cell block in a whole different part of the prison. And you come out 1 hour a day and you're in a cage like an animal. You go outside and you stay in this cage. So if you can imagine yourself walking around, I don't know, just in your bedroom, walking around in that same room, but it's not luxurious. It's a cage. There's wire fences. But by law, they have to give you that 1 hour of what they call recreation. So that was tough. That was a lot of time. You get a lot of time to think while you're in there. And so you're either going to turn your life around, or you're going to go back the other way. That's my opinion. It's a mind game. And just like daily, you have to have control of your thoughts. You have to have healthy thoughts. The same attacks that we have even out here, you have out there in your mind, but you're confined. You don't have like the support hands-on that you would want. The guards would be would say smart remarks. And I, like Monika, I was determined to come home, y'all. I had that 7 years was a beast, and I didn't want to spend another day. I had already had 6 months added from the fight, or lost some of my good time from that fight. I wasn't going to set myself up like that. So when the guards make smart remarks, or the ones that's checking you out, just like you do with any other man, when and then you just keep your head. I kept to myself. I hung around old women that was old enough to be my grandmother. You know why? Because they was too tired to be getting involved in crazy stuff. Yeah. And they also had a lot of wisdom. The girls that were my age, some of them was just crazy, wild, and I was done with that. I was done with that. And so it's about your mind. It's about your mind. I was determined not to lose my mind. I saw young ladies my age lose their mind, start taking medicine. Then they walking around like zombies. They were different in their eyes. You can tell when somebody's on medication, they look crazy in their eyes, and all that stuff was changing right before me. I watched people die in there. And the time that I was in there, it was the World Trade Center blew up. Aaliyah's plane crashed. I mean, I'm watching all this stuff on the news in a rec room full of inmates. And I'm thinking, the world is about to end. Watching the planes run, and I'm like, God, I just said, God, please, Lord. I've said, I really did it this time, because I was one that will always go too far. I just did. I would just take everything too far. And I said, I really did it this time. God, please, Lord, just let me make it home. My prayer was to make it home for one day. That's how bad I wanted to be home, just to see my family for one day. It was scary in there. You do have to watch your back, watch who you hang around. And yes, they would, 1 minute they cool with you, and the next minute they weren't. I learned that real quick. Yeah. And so, like I said, I tend to there's a couple older women that, I would hang around or sit around. But yeah, the guards, as well as the inmates, you had to watch all of them. You would have to watch all of them. And the thing that's so crazy is you can't get away from it. You're in this place that you cannot escape from. You just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And Crystal, can you share a little bit more? Because obviously a lot, whether you're in there or out here, it's the book, the battlefield of the mind. The mind is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And so you can go one way, you can go the other way, you can cry to God, or you can, take that darkness in. Can you share a little bit about how you kept your mind? You said you could go, one way or the other. How was it that you kept so focused on the positive in such a dark place? We would just like to invite you in on our podcast, where we're going to talk about some things. So get your tissues ready. It's going to be deep, but it's going to be real. So we invite you to just sit in with us and share our experiences. Share your experiences with us, and we'll share ours with you.